Welcome back to Modrn Business Podcast, everybody. This is a special edition of the podcast that we recorded at the 2023 International Franchise Association Convention. So I wanted to start with a few comments to set the frame, and the first is really more of a general comment, and that is that franchising and franchise entrepreneurship is a path for hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs to be able to achieve the American dream. And I would argue that number needs to be much more. According to Fran data numbers, I think it's in between 750 and 780 something thousand locations across the country. That number could be much more, and that's why an episode like this one with a guest who has a really large platform and he's willing to share the story of franchising, I think that's really important and it needs to happen more, and I have mad respect for our guest today. And so whatever your financial goals are or ambitions are, franchising really is open for opportunity, and that's a phrase coined by the IFA campaign. They're going across the country to meet with folks around the country that are doing amazing things in franchising. My second remark is a congratulations. I want to give someone very, very important to me special recognition and a shout out, and that is Sherry Fishman. She was the recipient of the Bonnie Levine Award this year, and it gave me tears of joy to watch her receive that honor and to receive it with grace and turn around and give recognition to her team and her family, who I consider an extension of my own. And so I just wanted to say congratulations, Mama Fish. You deserve it. And getting into this episode. So we're featuring a Super Bowl champion. You probably see that in the subject line or the thumbnail. But he elevated to the highest levels of achievement in professional sports. And now, in life beyond the field, he's sharing his experience being a franchisee and being invested in franchisors. And it's really neat because we have one of his franchisors on the show. Shout out to Tony Zaccario, who helped make the episode happen. And it's a really phenomenal chat. And the last thing I want to do before we get straight into the chat is I want to list a few resources for the franchise community. First, if you want to learn more about opportunities or connect with any of the brands featured on this podcast and beyond, you can fill out a form on modrnbusiness.com. We'll connect you with brands directly or with consultants that can help match you with your needs, because there's over 200 industries that you could buy into as a prospective franchisee. If you listen to this episode and you're super vibing on what Tony and Drew are laying out, go to their website and check them out. But modrnbusiness.com is an additional resource. We are massive evangelists of the franchise community. Secondly, another great resource, franchisors.com is the home of 3 boutique events that are designed to help the franchise community connect and learn and grow. And the first is Springboard event for emerging brands. It's held in Philadelphia every year in September. And a lot of the folks that have walked the path are the ones up on stage teaching and learning, and intermixed in between. I think there's over 130 speakers at this event, but it's also more boutique than, something with thousands of folks. There's, 600 or so folks at this event. Highly encouraged. Check that out. Unconference, which is coming up soon. It will be in Park City. There's still time to register. It's basically like franchise spring break with some really solid learning in the mornings and then just networking. It's an extreme networking event. And Zack, Fishman, and I, the last of the 3 events, we are now on our 4th Young Conference, where we gather the top young leaders in franchising. That's happening in May of this year in Chicago. And shout out Zack Fishman. He's my worthy co-host. And we weren't able to squeeze in room for him to be on this episode, but all the folks that listen to this podcast are certainly aware of him because he hosts a ton of episodes. And so last resource, and I promise we'll get into the episode, and this is an important one. If you're a franchisor and you're in the process of identifying a supplier, could be a multi-unit franchisee as well, but typically franchisors, and you're looking for a particular supplier need to be filled, or you want to do search and discovery or have an ideation session to explore what's out there, you can fill out an assessment on our website, franchisesuppliernetwork.com. This stays 100% confidential unless you specifically ask for recommendations or introductions. We also host content from suppliers. This is a place where the supplier conversation happens, and the network's growing by the day. Our suppliers serve over 2,000 brands collectively, and we just got started at the end of 2022. But our mission is to help franchisors really understand what's available to them. And so, having all that said, enjoy this special episode of Modrn Business Podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe, share this episode with any friends or family that would like to learn more about franchising, even if they're not aware of it yet. They probably should. And please do leave us a review or a comment wherever you're consuming this. Thank you so much, and cheers. Welcome, I'm Ryan Hicks, and this is Modrn Business, the podcast to learn from franchise business leaders and explore new business technology. Our community is about sharing knowledge and tools that help us achieve our goals in business and beyond. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Modrn Business. Welcome back. This is Modrn Business Podcast, the podcast for franchise entrepreneurs, and we are here as I come in with the cheesy intro.
Right. But we're here. Ryan's coming in strong.
A lot of confidence. Sorry.
We're here at IFA Convention. We have a special guest on the podcast. And Tony, have you been on the show before?
I have.
I thought he was a special guest.
Oh yeah. Well, we have two.
I'm kind of offended that he doesn't remember.
Two special guests, but we'll jump straight in. So, I don't think that you really need an introduction, but we have a Super Bowl champion, also one of the keynotes here at IFA on the show, Drew Brees. Of course, you know who Drew Brees is. And then Tony Zaccario, CEO of Stretch Zone. First and foremost, Cliff Notes. What are some of the franchise brands that you're involved in? And then we'll get in.
So I'm a franchisee for Jimmy John's. That's how I got into franchising to begin with in 2011. And now on the franchisor side, our partner in Walk-On's Sports Bistro, Stretch Zone, Everbowl, Small Sliders, and then I'm a partner and executive board member for Franworth, which are a company that helps build franchise systems. And we've got quite a few brands in our portfolio right now: Lash Lounge, SCOA, Sugaring LA, Garage Kings, Milkshake Factory, and Health Source Chiropractic.
Big fan of all those brands. I know most of the folks there. How did you two initially meet? And then also give a quick blurb on Stretch Zone for the folks in the audience that aren't aware.
It was a sunny Tuesday, and the relationship with Drew, and for those that don't know Stretch Zone is the leader and the pioneer and practitioner-assisted stretching space. Started franchising in 2017. Currently to date, we're at 257 locations as of today. So we're opening about two or three every single week. So we're obviously making a huge impact across the country. And when we first came, and when I first met Drew, was, he obviously believed in the service and the product already. And it was actually with his college roommate Jason. Ben wasn't at the initial discovery day. No. And everything in Stretch Zone's kind of story has always been organic. Like when we first talked, and we met Drew. Drew just fell in love with the actual service, and I'm not going to speak for him. I mean, I think he obviously liked where the business was going, and he was pretty aggressive in the sense of just like he said on stage, where he goes, "Hey, I want a Jimmy John's near here." He goes, we want to be able to be in Indy and New Orleans, and really develop those markets, and now Chicago with the group. And for us, it was making sure that we found someone, and I think what really resonated with Stretch Zone is that you found someone that shared the same core values, the same culture, and really wanted to contribute to the organization, what we've already created and worked so hard to create. And so it was a real testament to see him not only come on as an ambassador or sit on the board, and I think it spoke a lot to the franchisees that he was willing to go ahead and put his own dollars forward, invest in the brand, and actually open up now 10 locations within pretty much a span of a year or so. And so that's how we first kind of came about.
Yeah, as you mentioned, aggressive. I think my favorite part of the opening session was the chant at the end. You got the room fired up, so that was awesome. But what was it in general? Like, you obviously have opportunities to invest in many different things, and you kind of told, you don't have to retell the inception story that you told on stage today. But what is it that drew you to franchising as an investment vehicle?
I have always been drawn to franchising, have loved franchising because of what it can do for the franchisee. It's so hard to take your own idea or your own vision and bring it to reality, and then operate that, call it that mom and pop shop, right? I mean, that's so hard to do and so hard to sustain. And I think, as we saw too with COVID, I mean, so many of those went by the wayside, unfortunately, because they didn't have the support system that was in place, like many franchise organizations do. And so I think what I've always loved about it is franchising gives people the opportunity to be their own business owner with a proven model, with a proven concept, with a support system in place that gives them the ability to build a brand, be connected to their community, and gain financial freedom. That's what I've always loved about franchising. Now, I have a formula, kind of a personal formula that I go through when I think about the brands that I want to be involved in. Number one, it has to be authentic. And every brand that I'm involved in, I started off as a customer before I was anything else, right? And I told the Jimmy John story up there. I've always loved the stretch zone methodology, and that was a big part of my training regimen, my recovery regimen during the latter part of my career. I felt like it made a big difference for me. And so I knew the difference it made for me as an athlete, but story after story, when you begin to hear the testimonials of what it means to so many people, the unique thing about stretch zone is it literally, whether you're 2 years old or 102 years old, like there is not a person that gets off the table at stretch zone and doesn't say, gosh, I feel great. Like not good.
It's very true. When I was on the table, I said, ouch. I played catcher for decade and a half.
Yeah, so your knees are in real good shape, right?
I felt so light, and I'm a member, but I'm sad to say I don't go enough, but it's true. You mentioned kind of like the authentic vibe, like all the brands that you're involved with. I have the pleasure of also knowing a lot of them, and that's kind of what it brings, kind of what is apparent and obvious. But one thing, kind of looking at you, your career in sports, and all the great successes that you've had a lot of doubters along the way. So like if you go back and look, you blew out your knee in high school. Mm-hmm. You had a few D1 offers. You had the whole San Diego thing, which you told that story. And there's constant talk about your size, are you tall enough, this and that. But you just have grit and you have that champion spirit. And so how has that influenced, like when you look at, it's not just the big established brands, but you're working with brands that are also emerging, that are doing things right.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of competitiveness to take a brand that's a smaller one, emerging brand, and to make it into a household name, just maybe speak to that?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the underdog athlete story is probably very similar to the entrepreneurial story, right? Yep. It's grit, it's determination, it's persistence, it's overcoming adversity, it's, having a lot of people or situations tell you that you're not going to be able to accomplish it, right? But you continue to put one foot in front of the other. You find great mentors, people that can help you along the journey. And you just don't give up. And I think what I love, and look, this was the way I approached my athletic career, and it's the way I approach my career in franchising. And that is, I want to be associated with the very best in class, right? Yep. And I feel like I've done that in the brands that I've been able to identify. Started off as a customer, loved it, it was authentic, saw that there was great leadership and culture in place, and then the unit economics makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So was stretch on the underdog in that metaphor, or like the brand that was being counted out here, Ryan? Like,
and Tony, you're all right. You're all right. But hey, let me ask this. So, Drew's you're a franchisee in Stretch Zone.
Yes, I am.
And what do you have? 10 units.
10, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the things that Drew, because in franchising you always have your top performers.
Yeah. And
then you're always it's also the value of franchising. It's kind of the brain trust, and you're trying to get the folks that aren't performing as well to perform like his group operates. But do you think that his team, his culture for his units do anything special? And just maybe just riff on that. Like, have you gleaned any extra insights?
I think it's just, it all goes back to culture, right? We're in the people business just like everything else. And I think and Drew touched on stage about, just having a care for the actual individuals on the team. And like, listen, he does it with his partners, Ben Smith and Jason Lorzell, in the sense of like 2 college roommates back at Purdue. And like, they just care so much for each other that way they enjoy the process. They enjoy working with obviously all their clients, staff, whoever it might be. And, to bottle that up, and we always try to do as a franchisor is bottle that up and transfer it down to the unit level. But to have someone that actually leads by example to show other franchisees that, no, it really, a lot of times it does boil down to culture, right? You might be executing exactly what it is, but if you don't take care of your people, you don't care for them or make the investments into them, it's null.
I would say this too, it's something unique to Stretch Zone in regards to our practitioners is, and I think this goes across the kind of the fitness or health and wellness industry, is it's a very passionate group, right?
Yeah.
Like there's great purpose behind, what a practitioner wants to be able to, like the skill set that they want to develop, but also the experience they want to impart on, the customers that walk in the door. And look, we're naive to think that they don't have future aspirations. And in fact, many of our practitioners want to go to physical therapy school.
Or become a franchisee or own a business,
exactly.
or whatever it might be, yeah.
Physical therapy school or athletic training school, or eventually get to where they're the GM and they're their own franchisee. And I think the more you can kind of have that open dialogue and understand exactly what their goals and aspirations are, and then they know that you want to help them achieve that.
Yep.
I think you're going to get the best out of them. They're going to provide the best experience they can.
Well, they're making a direct impact on
members.
people's lives. Like, when people get off the table, it's not something you have to try to really spin to them about how they're making a difference. I mean, people come inside our stores. A goal could be something as simple as, hey, I want to go ahead and be able to put my shoes on without any kind of help, or be able to get dressed in the morning, and obviously the impact it makes on life versus other people who are active and athletes where I want to hit the ball further. Drew wants to, pick up his pickleball game, much needed. And so,
challenge accepted.
Ask Tony how that went for him. He wanted a shot at the title, and I gave him a shot at the title. Ask him how that went.
All right, because it's Ryan, so this is more your podcast style, Ryan. So I'm going to tell this story.
Yeah, go for it.
For all the 10 listeners. So
all right, thank you so much.
So we played pickleball twice. So we played in Indy during that opening, and it was actually, for the record, I was playing you pretty tight, and it was a little bit tighter of a game. So fast forward like a month or two. Yeah. So fast forward a month or two. I'm like, we're in San Diego. I'm like, okay, we're gonna play some pickleball. And so we go start playing pickleball, and I'm like, listen, I should be able to wear him down, right? He's been out of the league for a little bit. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, his shoulders, knees, joints are failing.
He keeps doing this little spin shot that he somehow developed in the 2 months after it.
He's watching film before he comes.
So I'm gonna be honest, he smoked me for the first few games. So then finally is like game 4 or 5, honestly. I mean, when I say smoke, like 11-0, 11-1, whatever it is. So there's one game where it's like 6-all, like 7-6. And Drew's like, do you want me to tell you my trick? And I'm like, I don't want to hear your nonsense, Drew. Like, I've been talking smack all game. So finally get to the end of the game, I lose like 11-8. He goes, you want me to tell you the trick? And I go, sure, Drew, tell me his trick. And he holds up his left hand. He was playing me lefty the entire game. True story. We're cutting that bit out.
So here's just a...
oh man, it's something I should really consider. Turning into like a pickleball presser.
So one of the things, we have about 10 minutes left here, but one of the things, we're here at the conference. There's 4,200 franchise professionals. A lot of brands doing a lot of great things. We kind of talk to ourselves a lot in the industry. And obviously you've grown organically, and that's a whole separate thing. We've had you come speak at Young Conference. How do we do a better job at communicating the value of franchising to the world? Obviously there's some advocacy things and all the rest, and there's some stuff that IFA's done a great job to address. There's work to be done. But if you look at the statistics, 70% of people want to be their own boss, and there's a lot of startup culture, there's a lot of these different things, but I think the world needs to hear more of the stories of franchising. That's the mission of this podcast in a lot of ways. We started it 5 years ago with we just want to talk about franchising and spread the gospel. And so how do you think we can do that more? How do we get the word out more?
I think it's by education, right? I think also the IFA does a great job of helping instill perspective to everyone in the franchise system, whether it's at the unit level or it's the franchisor level. I'm curious to hear from you, because it's your first IFA that you've come to. Yeah. I remember the first time I came to IFA, and you realize, and even when we bring our team out here, I don't think they realize how big the world is of franchising. I think when you first get into franchising, you realize that almost every single business you come into contact with, in some way, shape, or form, from services to food, the whole nine, they're franchise owned, right? And then you start thinking about the impact it makes on the owners' lives and the communities, respective communities. So I think it's through education and just, like you said, just getting the word out in all different venues possible. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on. Is your first IFA?
Yeah, I too was shocked at just how many franchise brands, opportunities there are out there. And it's funny because I kind of look at things through a different lens now. Like when I drive around, I find that my eyes are catching, these brands or these things or just these curiosities, right? And it's like, I'll stop at a red light and I'll like make a note like, hey, research, whatever the name of that place was, and it's just amazing the community. And so when you have obviously the information share that takes place at an event like this, right? And I think the opportunity for a lot of people to come together and, learn more about, what each other are doing, best practices, ways that they can support, and then obviously how they can continue to get the word out. Like I said, I mean, I've always been such a huge advocate of franchising and what it can mean for people in regards to being their own business owner, controlling their own financial future.
Yep.
There's nothing better.
You have your eye on anything else actively that you can break?
No. I think I've got my hands full. We got a lot of great things going, and so I think we just want to focus on, being the best in class, which we've been able to be, but continue that with all our brands. But I hopefully other opportunities will come, and,
Yep.
It'll be fun.
All right, so I'm gonna if anybody in the audience, we have a few people over here. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can jump in. One thing that I'll precede that with is, let's imagine that we're in the locker room and we're gonna give a little pep talk to whether it's franchisees in your system. But what is your advice to emerging brands, folks that are on their journey? They have a really strong brand, they're looking to grow. What would your advice be to emerging brands? I don't know at what stage you joined in Stretch Zone. I know that you guys
Store 4, Store 5.
Store 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And so you guys have learned a ton along the way.
I think like it's just doing it the right way. And so like we talk about that, like you talk about being best in class, it's just about franchising the right way. And you and I talked about this a lot, to where in business in general, there's so many different ways you can cut corners, especially in franchising, and you might be successful on the backs of the franchisees, not necessarily to their own benefit. And so we always want to develop a franchisee first culture. And so we want to make sure we put our franchisees first and understand that our job is to support them, right? Our client is not necessarily the client in the store. Our client is a franchisee. And it's worked out. And it's understanding as an organization, emerging brand, that you are successful first and foremost when your franchisees are successful. I think that was paramount to our growth and where we are.
I think for emerging brands, or just even if it's an established brand but you're moving into a new market, I think the more that you can get out in the community, and it sounds so simple, and yet I think it's paramount. You should, if you're a new franchisee in an area, you should be at every charitable fundraiser event that you can be at, or 5K, 10K, youth sports tournament. Like be out meeting people in the community, showing them that you're supporting them, educating people about whatever your product or service is.
And that touches on recruitment. It touches on everything.
Everything from being able to, source great, team members, or obviously gain, customers, or members. It's, plus I think it just builds brand awareness, brand loyalty, and it just entrenches you into the community. And I think just a lot of great things come as a result of that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, because I know we're running short on time, I have to tell you this. He, quote unquote, has the in with Gary Vee, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I can. I know a guy. We had Gary on back, I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
And so he has an agency called the Sasha Group. And so I know those guys well. The story of how we got Gary on the show is actually quite funny. I'll share that later. But big Gary fan?
I love Gary Vee, yeah. He's an owner in Major League Pickleball. He's got a team, the New Jersey Fives.
Do you have a team?
I have a team as well, the LA Mad Drops.
Nice.
Pickleball Club. I mean, we won the first championship this year, no big deal. But I've listened to Gary Vee's content for a long time. I actually started listening to it during COVID.
Nice.
But man, yeah.
Who hasn't listened to Gary Vee?
Yeah, I was going to say, I love his content. I think he's a super authentic guy and so has a lot of really good things to say.
So Ryan, if you can get us in like that glass room where he does all his like little video, it was his office where he does his podcast.
Yeah.
No.
Let's
Up
go.
in New York. What's the neighborhood that's in, Zach? Hudson Yards.
Here's my funny Gary Vee story. So I'm listening to all his content, right? Big Gary Vee fan. So he talks about the New York Jets all the time, right?
Yep.
He's going to own the New York Jets. So the Saints are playing the Jets last year in December. And so I'm flying back and forth because I got my NBC studio gig, which is in Stamford, Connecticut. But, we'd fly to New York. And so I shot him a DM on Instagram and I said,
Did you big time me?
No, I said, hey, let's Gary, Drew Brees, big fan. Saints are playing the Jets. I'm taking the Saints. I'll give you the points. Loser buys dinner, New York City. Let's talk football, NFTs, and wine. Let's go.
That's great.
And
Did he respond?
He didn't. I guess he didn't see it. And so I get a response back like a couple months later. He's like, dude, I wish I would have seen this.
So my story is actually with the
Come
wine.
on, you gotta give the story
I
now.
sent the quick version, but I sent one of his guys that runs his social. I tried to go through the proper channels, but I sent him a DM and I said, Gary's keynoting at IFA conference. And then I kind of got the block, like, oh yeah, he's booked. He's in and out, can't make it happen. Yeah. I said, I will buy 50 cases of your brand new wine company. And the dude was like, I'm with him now. He said he's in. Boom. And they got him on the show.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did you actually buy that?
So what'd that cost you?
$15,000.
Was this empathy wine?
Yep.
It's good stuff.
It's good.
And
That's
the
good.
funniest part
really
is
good.
there's laws on how much wine you can ship. And so I was going to do it over a period of months. I live in a high rise. I was like, where am I going to put this? So I'll get it later. I never actually got the wine.
Really? Yeah. All right, Gary V.
Gary, where's the empathy
get
wines
this man
at?
his wine
Yeah.
and send some to us as well.
Yeah. But do any of you guys have any quick questions or anything?
You gotta run.
Nothing come to mind? Last, because are we at time?
Yeah. We're
Okay.
pretty close here.
All right. Quick soapbox for people looking to buy franchise. People that are interested. Any parting words of advice?
Stretchzone.com.
Yeah, visit stretchzone.com. Go ahead and try it for yourself and learn more about the franchise opportunities in your local area. No, I think for anyone interested in franchising, it's find something you're passionate about. I talk about it all the time, and find something that's purpose driven in my mind. And there's so many good opportunities out there, and I always tell there's so many ways to make money in this world, and that's something that's been so eye opening. And we've all talked about this with different ways, shapes, or form, and so it's why you always gotta love what you do, right? And so I think it's pick something that you maybe already are using or something that you might be going to. That's one concept that I was talking to you about with my little one, but. So you got to find something that you're already doing, maybe using, and then make sure you do your due diligence, do your validation calls, and more importantly, it is mind blowing how many franchisees skip validation calls for franchise.
And call suppliers too, people.
Yeah, and call supply. Yeah. No, for sure. And but no, that's my thing of looking at franchise. Do your due diligence. Make sure you find something that you love, and visit stretchzone.com and go and learn more about franchise opportunities near you.
I'm gonna say find mentors in the space.
Well said.
Those that have been there, done it, had failures, had successes, and can save you a lot of heartache.
Yep, and that's what franchising does. But gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
I'll let you get on. Cheers.
Yeah.